Smile and learn!
Today, we're going to learn about viruses. Have you ever had the flu?
Achoo!
Do you know why we catch the flu?
Achoo!
It's probably because of a virus. Do you know what viruses are? We'll tell you all about them. What are viruses? Viruses are microorganisms. This means they are invisible in plain sight. To be able to see them, we need a microscope. Did you know that viruses are not living organisms? This is because, unlike cells, viruses cannot carry out the vital function of reproduction by themselves. To be able to carry out the vital function of reproduction, viruses need a host, that is to say, a living being in which to live. When they find one, the host will be infected by the virus. From this point forward, the virus will be able to replicate its genetic material in the host cells and copy itself many times to infect the entire organism. That's why sometimes viruses are known as infectious agents. Virus's structure. Viruses are simple organisms, found almost anywhere. Their main structure consists of an exterior shell called capsid and genetic material found inside the virus. The capsid is usually made of protein. The genetic material, which can be either DNA or RNA, contains necessary information to elaborate and form the complete structure of the virus. Some viruses may have an additional outer wrapping cover. How do viruses spread? Viruses can spread through different vectors like animals, water, air, food, or objects. A vector is the carrier of a virus that can infect other organisms. A mosquito bite, for example, can cause a virus to spread to another animal. Every time we cough, viruses spread out in the air. They are easily transmitted and infect living beings in the environment. That's why we should cough into our upper sleeve or elbow, not our hand, to avoid infection by contact. Having good hygiene habits like washing our hands regularly can prevent contact transmission with contaminated objects or food. Vaccines. As we mentioned before, some viruses cause diseases like the flu. Luckily, our immune system is there to protect us against viruses. As a prevention measure, we also have vaccines. Vaccines prepare our immune system, teaching it how to recognize a virus. It's like meeting someone for the first time. He or she will not be a stranger anymore. Next time you see them, you'll know who they are. The same thing happens with vaccines and our immune system. Vaccines introduce our immune system to the virus, and if at some point this virus enters our body, the immune system will remember which one it is and will react. This is how we won't get sick. We also have medicines that can relieve the symptoms, but are not able to cure the viral infection. Diseases. Some diseases caused by a virus are influenza, common colds, or certain cases of gastroenteritis. There is no vaccine yet for certain viruses. That's why they can be mortal. To tackle this problem, scientists all over the world work hard to find vaccines that will save millions of lives in the future. Other diseases caused by a virus attenuate their effect the moment we get infected, but thanks to vaccines, they are not lethal. These diseases are measles, rubella, or mumps. However, high-risk populations like children, asthma patients, or elderly people should be vaccinated every year. Today we're going to learn about bacteria. What are bacteria? Have you ever seen one? I don't think you have, because they are microorganisms, so you'd need a microscope to see them. Would you like to learn everything about bacteria? Let's have a look. Bacteria are living beings. This means they carry out the vital functions of nutrition, interaction, and reproduction. They are unicellular organisms. This means they are made up of one single cell. They are prokaryotic cells, meaning they don't have a nucleus. Bacteria can live in any environment on the Earth, regardless of how extreme its conditions may be. They can live in volcanoes, for example, or in the depths of the oceans. Structure and classification of bacteria. Bacteria are made up of the flagellum, the membrane cell which covers them, the ribosomes, the cytoplasm, and the nucleoid, which is genetic material consisting of DNA or RNA. There are several types of bacteria, which we classify in 3 groups. Bacilli bacteria. They are long, rod-shaped bacteria. Cocci bacteria. They are round-shaped, like a ball. Spirilla bacteria. They are spiral or S-shaped, like a spring. How do bacteria spread? Did you know that there are bacteria all over our body? Like in our intestines, for example, the mouth or the skin. Many of these bacteria help us to stay healthy. However, there are other bacteria that are pathogenic and cause diseases. Bacteria spread through water, air, or sneezing and coughing. This way they can pass from one human being to another. That's why it is recommended to sneeze or cough into our elbow. This way we prevent bacteria from ending up in our hands. They are also transmitted by touching objects or foods. That's why it is very important to maintain good hygiene habits, like washing our hands well or brushing our teeth. Antibiotics. The bacteria that cause diseases are called pathogens. Our immune system, or other bacteria in our body, are in charge of protecting us against them. However, sometimes it is necessary to take medicines, like antibiotics. Misusing these medicines can cause the growth of resistant bacteria against which there is no cure. Antibiotics can kill bacteria that are necessary to our body, like the intestinal flora bacteria. You can only take antibiotics if and when they are prescribed by a doctor. What do bacteria do? Bacteria can be harmful or cause diseases like gastroenteritis, otitis, pneumonia, or tooth decay, for example. As we said before, there are also bacteria that help us to stay healthy. One example are the bacteria in our intestine, which produce nutrients to protect our organism. There are also bacteria used to make food like yogurt or cheese. This happens owing to a process called fermentation. Other bacteria are decomposers. That's why some foods rot. This is caused by the growth of microorganisms in them. However, some of these decomposers are found in the ground and produce the necessary nutrients for crops to grow. That was all about bacteria. Interesting, right? Today we're going to learn everything about fungi. Which of these organisms would you say is a fungus? All of them are fungi. Let's learn more about these organisms. The fungal kingdom, also called fungi kingdom, is one of the 5 kingdoms into which all living things are divided. Note that fungi are not animals or plants. Fungi are living organisms because they carry out the vital functions of interaction, reproduction, and nutrition by themselves. Some fungi, like yeasts, are unicellular microorganisms not visible in plain sight. To observe them, we need to use a microscope. Other fungi are multicellular. These are composed of many cells, grouped together, forming long, thin strings called hyphas. Hyphas form the reproductive structures. The mushrooms or the mold contain spores by which fungi reproduce. We usually find fungi under the ground, on pieces of wood, or on decayed food. Fungi are formed by one or many eukaryotic cells. Fungi eukaryotic cells are enveloped by a cellular wall and contain no chlorophyll. Remember, they're not animals or plants. Fungi cell groupings don't form tissues, as in the case of animals. They form hyphas. Some fungi are edible and very tasty, like mushrooms or truffles. Careful, some can be toxic. There are other foods, like some types of cheeses that have fungi in them. Roquefort cheese, for example. There are some fungi harmful to our health that may cause skin or lung diseases. Some fungi produce antibiotic substances used as medicines to fight bacterial infections. One of the most well-known and widely used antibiotics is penicillin. This antibiotic was discovered by Alexander Fleming in the 20th century. Fungi can be found in the air, plants, or in water, and they are mainly transmitted through contact. Poor hygiene or poor sanitizing may be the reason why people get infected by fungi. In nature, mushrooms produce spores that travel in the air until they reach a place where they can germinate. Fungi are heterotrophs, meaning they feed on other living beings. That's why many fungi are decomposers. For example, some types of molds decompose fruits and vegetables to be able to feed themselves and grow. The substances they decompose are also sources of soil nutrients that plants and other living beings feed on. As you can see, fungi are very important for human beings and the planet. Thanks to them, we can make foods and medicines to cure diseases. They are also necessary for the vital processes in many biomes, as they're able to decompose organic material. That's all about fungi. Interesting, right? Do you know what microorganisms are, and how many types of them are there? Let's learn everything about them! There are organisms that consist of one single cell, called unicellular organisms. These organisms are very small. That's why we call them microorganisms. You may also know them by other names like germs or microbes. To observe microorganisms, we need specific instruments like microscopes. Microorganisms come in many sizes and forms. In ancient times, some investigators had already questioned whether or not the diseases human beings had may be caused by organisms invisible in plain sight. This is when they started investigating microorganisms. Anton van Leeuwenhoek was the first investigator to start observing microorganisms in the 17th century. Microscopes and the investigations done with them allowed other scientists to continue learning how diseases were caused or how they could be cured. Some types of microorganisms are bacteria, viruses, and fungi. Bacteria. They are prokaryotic cells. They have no nucleus. Some bacteria are useful in food fermentation, like making yogurt or cheese. By contrast, other bacteria are harmful and may cause infections. We treat bacteria with antibiotics. They spread in different ways. Viruses. They are not living beings. To carry out the vital functions, they need a host, that is, a living being. They are much smaller than bacteria. Sometimes they can infect them and live inside them. Some viruses cause diseases like flu or chickenpox. To prevent diseases caused by viruses, vaccination is important. There isn't a vaccine for every virus. Fungi. Some fungi are microorganisms bigger than bacteria or viruses. They can be found in the air, plants, or in the water. Some, like yeasts, are used to make foods. I'm sure you've seen mold on fruit or bread. This is a type of fungi. As we have seen, microorganisms can be everywhere because they are not visible in plain sight. To prevent diseases and avoid getting infected, it is very important to have good hygiene habits. Now you're all an expert in microorganisms. You know how to tell the difference among bacteria, viruses, and fungi. See you around! Hi there! This team is investigating viruses and bacteria. Will you help them identify the similarities and differences between them? Let's start with something they have in common. Both viruses and bacteria can cause diseases. Bacteria and viruses that cause diseases are called pathogens. These pathogens can produce diseases like gastroenteritis, for example. Have you ever had it? I hope not. It may give you a tough time. First similarity to note down: bacteria and viruses can cause diseases. Both viruses and bacteria spread very easily through direct contact with objects, the air, or water. The elements through which viruses and bacteria are transmitted are called vectors. Second similarity to write down in our notebook: bacteria and viruses are transmitted by different vectors. Bacteria are prokaryotic cells that carry out the three vital functions of nutrition, interaction, and reproduction by themselves. That's why we regard them as living organisms. By contrast, viruses need a host to reproduce. They cannot carry out the three vital functions by themselves. That's why viruses are not considered to be alive. Let's note down the first difference. Bacteria are living organisms, while viruses are not. Viruses are much smaller than bacteria. In fact, some viruses can infect bacteria. In this picture, you can see a comparative relation of the sizes of viruses and bacteria. One more difference to write down in our notebook: viruses are much smaller than bacteria. If we compared the structure of a virus to that of a bacteria, we would find several differences. Viruses don't have organelles, while bacteria do have them. The genetic material of viruses is inside a capsid. The genetic material of bacteria is found free in the cytoplasm. Bacteria have flagella, viruses don't. Some viruses may have a covering, while bacteria are surrounded by a cell membrane. Another difference to note down: the structure. To cure diseases caused by bacteria, it is necessary to take antibiotics. However, the best means to fight a disease caused by a virus is a vaccine. Vaccines help us to prevent diseases caused by viruses. The last difference to note down: medical treatment of diseases. As you can see, there are many differences and some similarities between both microscopic organisms. One similarity is that both bacteria and viruses can cause diseases. Also, both are transmitted by different vectors. On the other hand, their differences lie in the fact that Bacteria are living organisms, while viruses aren't. Viruses are much smaller than bacteria. They have different structures. The diseases they cause are cured following different medical treatments. That's all for now. Our science investigation notebook looks so complete. Hoping to see you again on our next investigation.
Did you like the video? We have so many more! Subscribe by clicking on the seal. And if you want to keep watching more videos, click on the boxes.